everyone, and welcome back to Very Cold Lasagna, the Filthy Casual podcast for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am DylanLasagna, and welcome to episode number 120 of this icy yet spicy podcast of said takes on the world of sports. And, well, here we are, just a few days removed from the end of what was a weird weekend of playoff football. Yes, we are here to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that is, of course, NFL Super Wildcard Weekend 2022 edition. And yeah, these matchups were actually a little bit more surprising than people expected. As I talked about in the Super Wildcard Weekend Filthy Casuals preview, you know, I talked about how a lot of these like rematches, which basically they were, you know, I initially thought they were going to be like total wipeouts, total like wishy-washies. For the most part, you know, a few, like at least two of them were, but a lot of them were very surprising to say the least. How close they were, down to the wire, which makes for either good football or bad football, like down to the wire. I mean, again, it depends on your view of the imagination of it, but in the end, you know, it was some pretty solid football this weekend to open the NFL playoffs this year. So we're going to talk about it in this particular episode of Very Cold Lasagna. Obviously, I want to talk about some things, do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the main meat and potatoes of this show on today. So first things first, you know, always make sure to check out everything in relation to Very Cold Lasagna, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Google Podcasts. Yes, we're on Google Podcasts as well, and Spotify. So yeah, for all my audio listeners out there, you're once again getting back into the rotation, slowly but surely. I'm trying not to forget about all of you, and then we're pumping out more YouTube content throughout even more as well. And don't forget to rate and review Very Cold Lasagna on the audio side of things as well. Like and comment on YouTube as well. And I will remind everyone again that I'm gonna get very weird on my end because it's gonna get very busy in the next week or so because just of my work schedule. It's going to get kind of screwy. It might cause a little bit of stress on my end. So if I don't put anything up like with the divisional playoff recap or like a conference championship preview or something next week, I do apologize in advance. It's just like me trying to keep up with that intense schedule. I'm going to be working I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be working like literally full days next week at one of my jobs. It's like, I kid you not, it's going to be intense. I can't disclose anything, just for privacy reasons, but it's going to get real intense next week. And I'm just trying to find the time, where to fit it in to get this, content out for you all. To the best of my ability. I'm going to try. If I don't, I apologize in advance. Life happens. So anyway, that's pretty much it. What I wanted to talk about to open this, today's episode. Now, let's talk about this Super Wildcard Weekend. Super Wildcard. Ultra Wildcard. Look at this freaking wildcard, man. So as I said, when we were doing the Filthy Casuals guide to Super Wildcard Weekend, I was kind of like a little meh on the overall like playoff weekend in general, like at least on paper, because well, it's a lot of rematches from the entire like 2022 regular season, and you know, a lot of the teams going in were either pretty bad or like we knew what the result was gonna be going in, and then. Yeah, as it turned out, yeah, That didn't happen at all, or at least not close to what was happening. So when we look at this like super wildcard weekend slate that we're about to talk about, there are a lot of things to take away from not just the winners but also the losers of these games, because even the losing teams have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things to take away from them. So, oh boy, buckle up, bitches. It's time to break down Super Wildcard Weekend, starting with the Saturday slate. The NFC first round matchup kicked things off. Obviously, I was trying to catch up so hard on this, and for all the people that caught my recap of this game, I do apologize in advance. It was kind of like messy. I was trying to watch that game, fit that in my schedule. I kind of rushed it. I do apologize. It is what it is. So anyway, the NFC wildcard matchup between my San Francisco 49ers, the number 2 seed in the NFC, hosted the 7th seed, the Seattle Seahawks, in a 3-match of their NFC West rivalry. The Niners won the season series. They swept the Seahawks. Then they were looking for a 3-peat sweep. So as the NFC West champion, they hosted the Seahawks in this 3-match. And, I got to say, the Niners did not look pretty good defensively for most of the first half. And Brock Purdy, as I kind of expected this from Purdy, considering this was his first playoff game and he's only had, 5 or 6 starts under his belt. It was kind of expected that he was going to look really shaky in the first half and maybe a little too try-hard-ish, because when you look at how he played in the first half compared to the second half, first, he was either throwing some usually nice passes, whether it's like a check down or trying to get aggressive, and he actually did connect with some long passes, or he made some bad decisions, like a badly underthrown ball to Juwan Jennings in the red zone that could have gave the Niners the opening drive touchdown, but instead they settled for a field goal on their first drive. But then he bounced back later on their second drive when they got back into the red zone, thanks to Christian McCaffrey's long run to set up that. He found McCaffrey with like a sequence where he was like gain pressure in the pocket. Then he ran out of the pocket. He was like scrambling around, and then he sidearmed it to Christian, who just waltzed in for the score, and they were 10 up 10-0 early in the first quarter. But then, early on in the first half, he was like pretty shaky with those passes. Like, he was good and then he was bad, which honestly was kind of expected, at least for me. I'm not sure about y'all. But then when you look at the Seahawks, they were hurting the Niners defense in a lot of ways. Kenneth Walker was gashing their run defense multiple times. He even walked in for a 20+ yard touchdown. And then Geno Smith was actually attacking the Niners with some good shots in the secondary and in the air via the play action pass. So when Geno Smith handed off the ball to Kenneth Walker and then held onto it, especially outside the pocket, the defense was just unable to do anything. When he got to DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett or somebody else, they were just getting picked on, especially Charvarius Ward. He didn't have a good first half against DK Metcalf. He got burned. He just absolutely got burned on the touchdown that allowed Seattle to take the lead with, I think it was over 7 minutes to go in that first half. And then they were a little bit undisciplined as well for the 49ers defense. Jimmy Ward made a bad hit on Geno, an unnecessary roughness penalty. He didn't need to do that. He knew he was sliding. And yeah, there's at the same time, some people couldn't say the argument, he didn't need to do that. What else was he supposed to do? Jump, suddenly jump out of the air? And yeah, that's also true. But it's that's something that he knows is better. So Seattle took like a lead at halftime, 17-6. But then the Niners start to come together in the first half. Brock Purdy looked much better, looked more poised. The offensive line was doing a much better job of protecting him against the Seattle pass rush. But then Seattle once again used the strength of their own offensive line, who, by the way, actually did a solid job against the interior pass rush, as well as Nick Bosa as well. They gave Geno all day to throw as they got back to the Niners red zone. But it was the strip sack of defensive tackle Charles Omenihu that changed the tide of the game for good. So, yeah, the Niners offense took advantage of that. Purdy hit some long strikes to Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings. And then once they got to the fourth quarter, when they continued their drive, he did a pocket scramble again. This time he threw it to Elijah Mitchell, took it into the end zone, and then he connected with George Kittle with a 2-point conversion. The Niners were up by that point 31-17. They were completely throwing off Seattle, and then the defense finally settled in. They finally got the heat on the offensive line. They finally were able to get to Geno Smith, putting that pressure on him, and 3-and-out, and an interception by Tashawn Gibson, and then Purdy connected with Debo, who, courtesy of Brandon Ayuk, giving him a good block, a long catch and run, 70+ yards, and the Niners eventually ran away with that game, 41-23. So you got to give a little bit of credit to Seattle, I guess. They had everybody there. They really had everybody a little bit worried for Niners fans, because they played it real close for a good chunk of that game, with a lot of clean play by their offensive line, giving all the time in the world for Geno to throw, and DK Metcalf was just having his way with Charvarius Ward, who honestly, prior to the second half, didn't have much of a good game in coverage, man-to-man against Metcalf. Metcalf was like a man on a mission after the bad Week 15 game in Seattle. So DK Metcalf really did a number on Charvarius Ward until the fourth quarter. So unfortunately for Seattle, in the fourth quarter, they just basically imploded after that strip sack turnover. They made another turnover, and they committed more penalties too, where they didn't do any penalties in the first half. So yeah, for Seattle, their season ends at the hands of their division rivals, the 49ers. Now they have a major offseason decision coming. Do they sign Geno Smith to a long-term deal? Does Geno Smith agree to a deal that works for the best of them? Does he want a big, fat contract? Is he going to demand a big, fat contract? Or is the Seahawks going to give him a big, fat contract? Well, it's something to be worth watching. If they do, will it be something worth long-term? That's something remains to be seen. Coming soon to an offseason near you. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, for the next game, they're going to have to be better defensively. Whoever their next opponent will be, more on that in just a bit, they can't allow that to happen. They cannot allow that to happen. They're going to have to come out of the gate much stronger, more faster, because if they play a much better opponent with a better offensive line, with a better receiving attack, better rushing attack, they will get hurt right away. And especially with the secondary and their own holes, if Charvarius Ward has another bad game, then there could be some issues there in the secondary. So they got the big turnover, but then what if they don't get the big turnover and put the game away? Then there can be some concerns there in the defense. So the Niners have to do better defensively to start the game and continue the consistency from that point on in the divisional playoffs. So overall, it was a pretty good performance for the 49ers all around in the second half. Going to the divisional playoffs, I would like to see some more, just some more, a better start. I'll just keep it simple as that. A better start from the 49ers all around. As for Brock Purdy, passed another test. It's only going to get tougher from here on out. And how he does, well, let's just hope he does well. Now on to the next game, the nightcapper for Saturday, and we head towards the AFC as the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars. The number 4 seed took on the number 5 seed LA Chargers. So this is a rematch of their Week 3 meeting that the Jaguars won back in LA, 38-10. This time, the Jaguars, as the AFC South champions, got to host the Chargers this time around. So this game was primed to be a blowout. This game was primed to be an easy win for Brandon Staley's crew because, well, Trevor Lawrence had a really shitty first half. He was terrible. He was god-awful. 4 interceptions in the first half, 3 of them to corner on Asante Samuel Jr., and they also had a muff punt. They also had a muff punt in the special teams, and Trevor Lawrence was just crumbling to the Chargers pass rush. He was like, if he wasn't crumbling to the Chargers pass rush, then he was just throwing away the balls to the defense. It was like it was doing good for the Jaguars in a case to be made for them to be all elite, not jokingly. So for the Chargers, they took full advantage of the given short field that they often got from those turnovers Trevor Lawrence was making. Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler, along with the rest of the LA offense, they gashed the Jacksonville defense, and they put themselves up quickly, 27-0 by midway through the second quarter. So it was looking very bad for Jacksonville. This was not a playoff quality game by that point onwards. But then the Jaguars made a touchdown to end the first half. Trevor Lawrence connected with Evan Ingram, and yeah, it was the first half. And initially I would have thought that, okay, they scored a touchdown, but then the Chargers are still playing all right. They were playing solid. Their defense was still putting the pressure, putting the heat. They were getting to Trevor Lawrence, and yeah, it still seemed like, even despite that touchdown, the Chargers were well on their way to the divisional playoffs against the Chiefs in a 3-match. But then what ended up happening with that touchdown instead led to the spark igniting the all-elite Jaguars. Yes, the Jaguars, sponsored by All Elite Wrestling's and their main man, Tony Khan. Tony Khan must have talked to the Jaguars, talked to Doug Peterson, and say, hey, you need to go All Elite. You need to sign with All Elite Wrestling right now, pal, or you're gonna get a rim job. You're gonna get an A rimming by Kenny Omega and the Cucks suck if you lose this game. And Doug Peterson's like, no, we don't want that. I don't want that for me or my quarterback. So they went on a run. The defense tightened up on a Chargers passing game that was sorely missing Mike Williams, who, well, because of Brandon Staley's stupidity in Week 18 to play his starters, he was out due to a back injury. And the defense increased the pressure on Justin Herbert. They forced him to get the ball out real quick, forced some incompletions. Meanwhile, for the offense, Trevor Lawrence actually had a much better game. He got the ball out much quicker. He got out of the pocket, picked apart the Chargers defense in the second half. And yeah, his better second half performance was highlighted by a tightrope throw to Zay Jones in the third touchdown. Mid-ranger to Evan Ingram late in the game. Set up Christian Kirk's touchdown and a 2-point conversion to cut the Chargers lead to 2. Combine that with a penalty by Joey Bosa for unsportsmanlike conduct. And here you are. The Chargers are once again clippering again The Clippers are striking back in Jacksonville, and the Jaguars are suddenly trailing just 30-28 with 2 minutes left to go. They get one last stop on defense, and the Chargers have one more thing to do. They only have one last gasp to stop Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars offense from successfully winning the game. But unfortunately, they clip her up. They clip her up, pal. And Travis Etienne, the Jaguars running back, gets a big run into Chargers territory. And that allows Riley Patterson, their kicker, to cap off the third largest playoff comeback in NFL history as the all-elite Jaguars beat the Clippers. Yes, it doesn't matter. Like the Clippers and the Chargers are the same. Who gives a shit? The LA Clippers were defeated 30-28. Thanks a lot, Brandon Staley. Good job, pal. Yeah, the Jaguars are going to Kansas City. So anyway, Trevor Lawrence. What a game. What a tale of two halves. What a tale of two halves by Trevor Lawrence. He had a shitty first half, throwing 4 interceptions, looked like a very inexperienced quarterback. Didn't know what he was doing. Had no business being in that first round matchup. And then in the second half, they made the adjustments for him to be successful, and it paid off. He did pretty good. But going into this next divisional playoff game against Kansas City, against the top-seeded Patrick Mahomes in that offense, he's going to have to play an absolutely cleaner game for the Jaguars to have any chance against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City. Because if he plays like that with a pass rush consisting of Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and yeah, Kansas City defense is, it's kind of okay. But if he lets the pass rush get to him and he throws balls like he did in the first half against the Clippers, Patrick Mahomes will make you pay. He will make you pay like in an instant and more often. The Chiefs will smash the Jaguars if Trevor Lawrence has a performance like that. Meanwhile, for the Clippers, though, I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised that they blew it. They absolutely blew it. And what really bugs me about this game by the Clippers is the follow-up. And not so much that they blew this game, is what happened afterwards. So recently, the offensive coordinator and the passing game coordinator got fired. Like, why would they get fired? Like, why were the only ones they got? Why were they the only two that got fired? And I mean, sure, it sucks that for people to lose their jobs, but shouldn't have Brandon Staley, the head coach, the guy that allowed this to happen, shouldn't he have been the one that got fired too? Shouldn't his entire staff be gone as well, including him, for basically choking away the game? Because he is a defensive coach. Isn't he the guy that schemed up his team to get 4 interceptions on Trevor Lawrence and then basically shat on that, wasted Asante Samuel's good game? Like, what are the Chargers doing? Oh, sorry, not the Chargers. The Clippers. What are the Clippers doing with Brandon Staley? Why isn't he out of the building yet? And not only that, did I mention the mishandling of Week 18? Like how they missed Mike Williams. They let him hanging out to dry with the back injury. Like, how is he not fired yet? How is Brandon Staley not fired yet? And again, I hate calling for people to be fired. And yes, I do. It hates my gut to do that with my 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. But it's just like, when they deserve it, they absolutely have to call out it. And that sounds hypocritical, but come on, man. How have they not fired him yet? How? It is just ridiculous. So the Jaguars beat the Clippers 30-28 in a big ass comeback, and they're moving on to face the Chiefs in the next round, the AFC Divisionals. So the playoff picture continued to go full circle for the next round as we reach towards the Sunday slate. Kicking things off on Sunday was the AFC wildcard matchup between the Buffalo Bills, the 2 seed, hosting the 7 seed Miami Dolphins in an AFC East the rematch. So this was an interesting one. Obviously, these two teams split the regular season series. Miami won the first one in week 3 at home. The Bills won the second one in week 15 in their place. The only thing was for Miami, they weren't going to have their starter, Tua Tagovailoa. He was still in the concussion protocol. They also weren't going to have their backup quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, with the dislocated pinky finger. So Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins head coach, was forced to rely upon a third-string quarterback, a 7th-round rookie by the name of Skylar Thompson. Who? Don't worry, I don't know either. So this is basically his second or third start of the game of a game, and not just a game, a playoff game. So initially, like when I talked about this game in the last episode, it should have been easy pickings for Buffalo. And initially, it seemed like it because Josh Allen moved the offense with ease, got a quick deep pass to Stephon Diggs, set up a pass to Dawson Knox. The Bills were up 7-0. The defense quickly intercepted Skylar Thompson, and Buffalo took advantage of that interception. James Cook, the running game got going. Touchdown, 14-0, just like that in the first quarter. But then something happened. In the rest of the first half. It was no matter of the relentless blitz that Miami was putting on, Josh Allen just seemed to be a turnover machine. He just wanted to turn over the ball in the first half with a lot of yeeted throws, just out of nowhere. And yeah, it was like, 2 or 3 interceptions in that game in the first half alone. And on special teams, they muffed the punt. And Miami got back in the game to tie it up. And at the end of the first half, sure, Buffalo took a lead, but they were literally letting Miami stay in the game with their constant mistakes. Especially Josh Allen. He was trying so hard to make something happen, to advance the ball downfield. He was being too aggressive in that game. I don't know if it was him trying to do too much or his offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, scheming things around the offense to be too Josh Allen focused. Either way, it made for a concerning game for Bills Mafia because Miami turned the tide initially and took the lead. Eric Rowe of the Dolphins strip sacked Josh Allen, and the Dolphins recovered it in the end zone to start the third quarter. And as soon as you know it, the Dolphins are up 24-20. And Buffalo entered some serious trouble going the rest of the way. Fortunately for them, the Dolphins shot themselves in the foot one too many times down the stretch, especially in the fourth quarter with clock management and plays. And once Buffalo took the lead back, Miami was really getting into some trouble themselves, especially in the last final 6 minutes when they had an opportunity to take the lead and upset Buffalo. They wasted a lot of timeouts, a lot of time on the clock. Sure, they were having trouble getting the plays in, but they should have improvised. Skylar should have found something to improvise with, but instead it resulted in missed opportunities, wasted timeouts, rushed plays, And eventually, the Bills would go on to hold off Miami and a potential upset, and they would beat them 34-31. So that was a game that nobody expected it to be that close. Like, literally, everyone was expecting for the Bills to easily dispose of the Tua Tagovailoa-less Dolphins. But instead, because they got in their own way too much, it just ended up being closer than people thought. And now people going into this divisional game, whoever they play next, more on that in a bit, they have some serious concerns. A lot of people have serious concerns about the Bills, especially on offense and with Josh Allen. Like, people are having serious trust issues with Josh Allen. I mean, not the team, but the fans. And people that like Josh Allen. Like, his turnovers are becoming a problem. I think, for me, Josh Allen is putting way too much pressure on himself to try and make things happen. He's turning the ball over, like, pretty much every week. And if the constant turnovers keep happening for the Bills, then their playoff run, especially if they face a much tougher team like Cincinnati or the Chiefs, if they ever get to the AFC title game, then it's only going to get harder. It's only going to get harder, and it's going to result potentially in the end of the Bills' latest attempt to get back to the Super Bowl. So Josh Allen really has to cut back on trying to make things so damn hard on himself. Like, he's trying to be hero way too much. It's like he's got to learn. He has to learn to trust his team. Trust his teammates, especially his running back. Like, James Cook has been doing pretty solid. I mean, sure, he's not his brother, Dalvin, but as a rookie, I mean, he's shown some potential. Come on, put some trust in your teammates. Meanwhile, for Miami, I think going into their offseason, of course, the biggest thing that you want to know is whether or not Tua should be your starting quarterback going to 2023, considering the concussions that he's suffered this season. But I think the thing that Mike McDaniel will want to take away from this game is how to properly work the clock. Hopefully, that's something that he could work on going to year 2, because that was not a good display of good clock management in this game against Buffalo. It was just bad. It was just really, really bad. So, yeah, the Bills managed to hold on against the Dolphins 34-31. The Bills are moving on to their third straight divisional playoff game. Who are they going to play? Well, we're going to talk about that in just a bit. Back to the NFC side, in the midday portion, the Minnesota Vikings hosted the New York Giants as the 3 met the 6 in this matchup. So this is a rematch of their Week 16 Christmas Eve meeting, which the Vikings outlasted the Giants 27-24 on the last second field goal. And yeah, this was a game. This was a pretty good game. And this is actually a potential shootout, like, from the start, because both teams struck the end zone on their first drives. And yeah, that set the tone for an interesting day. But it was the Giants that would have the better consistency in this game. Daniel Jones had his way with the Vikings' atrocious defense all day long, whether it was with his arms or his legs. He just looked like a pretty efficient quarterback. And I guess in fairness, well, yeah, like I said, the Vikings defense was pretty ass, and it showed in the most toughest environment. Not considering that they're at home, but I mean, in a playoff game, they really ran out of luck on defense, and just got exposed big time. So Daniel Jones pretty much had an efficient day, along with Saquon Barkley, who constantly gashed as well the Vikings defense. So the Giants went on this long ass drive to burn the second quarter, most of the second quarter, It was by that point, with about 5 minutes to go, it was 17-7, going into the last 5 minutes. But the Vikings managed to cut the lead to 17-14 to end the first half. The defense for the Giants, though, they sometimes have some lapses in coverage, like on the touchdown on KJ Osborne. They just left him wide open. And yeah, it was 17-14 at halftime. But the problem was, it's despite how solid Kirk Cousins was playing, the defense for Minnesota was just still getting exposed, still being terrible. As there's no pass rush, and that allowed Daniel Jones to throw all day, and people were getting left open, wide open in the secondary. And by the time you know it, with 5 minutes left to go in the third, the Giants were up 10. They were up 10. And then when you get to the fourth quarter, when it's all tied up, the Giants, they even though they get a stop, the Vikings get a stop on the Giants sacking Daniel Jones. The Vikings tie it up at 24. The Giants made them pay them right afterwards. They attacked their defense yet again. Saquon Barkley powers through the goal when they get to the goal line. The Giants retake the lead, 31-24. The Vikings, the only lead they had was really on their very first drive. Now the Vikings are literally in pressure mode, desperation. They only have 5 minutes, so they couldn't do anything. They had to punt, and they had to spend all their timeouts to kill the clock. So New York had a chance to seal the deal with the first down, with an opportunity to get a first down with 3 minutes left. But man, that was a killer. That was a near killer by Darius Slayton, dropping a wide open check down catch from Daniel Jones, and it gave the Minnesota Vikings initially one last chance to make their signature stupidly crazy comebacks that they had all year long. But when they got to midfield, they stalled. They stalled at midfield, and then with the game on the line, they couldn't call any timeouts. They couldn't punt. The pressure just got too hot. The pressure just got too high for Kirk Cousins. And what did he do? Rather than go to his main man, Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, was covered all game. The Giants took away Justin Jefferson from the Vikings offense. Ooh, yeah, credit to them. Adam Thielen barely got any action. He also got covered. TJ Hawkinson was the only reliable guy for Kirk. And what did he do with TJ Hawkinson? He threw a check down. Fucking yikes, dude. He threw a check down to TJ Hawkinson well short of the first down. On 4th and 8, TJ Hawkinson caught a check down pass from Kirk Cousins, and the Giants easily stopped him from getting that first down and clinched the upset 31-24. Oh my goodness. And yeah, I said the Giants were going to upset the Vikings in the only upset of this weekend. But it's dude, to end like that's awful. That is, well, I mean, I guess it's also expected because, well, it's Kirk Cousins. He falters in the biggest of moments. But this was for some people, this is a different Kirk Cousins. But then, as proven in that final play, it's well, the Kirk Cousins of old is once again back. But again, this whole game, aside from that one play, this whole game proved that, well, it wasn't all Kirk Cousins' fault. Sure, he could have found a way to escape the pocket, and yeah, he's not a mobile quarterback, but he has found ways to escape the pocket. It's just that offensive line didn't really let him escape it. And that offensive line was very beat up with injuries. And very unreliable this whole season. Did you see how many times Kirk Cousins got hit? How many times he's got sacked in the regular season? It was a lot. And then the defense, it got exposed big time in this game. And it was one of the many times where they got exposed. I mean, come on. What I'm saying is the Vikings have to commit to addressing the defense and the offensive line this offseason. Like, they're a little bit in the red, but they have to make some cost-cutting measures. They have to decide like who's worth keeping, who's worth deleting, and just find something. Find anything to make the defense stronger, make the offensive line stronger, because it was clear from the since the onset of week 3 that this defense is going to be the death nail in the Vikings' hopes of reaching like deep into the playoffs. Sure, they won the division from the Packers, but they didn't even get far. In Green Bay. So I hope that the Vikings seriously commit to addressing their biggest weakness in the offseason. If they don't, well, that's their loss. Meanwhile, for the Giants, this is a good job by them in this game. And yeah, they did play the Vikings' weak-ass defense, but they should be proud of just getting to this point. And they definitely want to go for more. And they do definitely face a tougher task next against the Philadelphia Eagles. But they do have at least some kind of potential recipe for success against coming up. They took away Kirk Cousins' best weapon in Justin Jefferson. And sure, it'll be a tall ask to find a way to take away Jalen Hurts' best weapons and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But the Giants, they're playing with a lot of motivation, with a lot of grit, with a lot of physicality, especially in the defensive front with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. And yeah, it's going to definitely be tough. It's definitely going to be tough for the Giants to upset the Eagles. But if they can cut it close, make it physical against Philadelphia, and offensively, if Daniel Jones can find some holes against the Eagles' defensive line, who will be getting some people back, but who knows? They may be rusty. Then that game can be a little bit closer than you think, or maybe not. But the Giants on that wildcard game did pretty good. They did pretty good. So yeah, that was the last game on the Sunday slate for the NFC. The nightcap for the wild card Sunday was the 3-seeded Cincinnati Bengals hosting the 6-seeded Baltimore Ravens in an immediate 3-match between the division rivals. Why did I say immediate? Well, the Bengals pretty much hosted the Ravens the week before. Yeah, the last week of the regular season. So yeah, there's a matchup that, like I said, pretty much with a few of the other matchups in wildcard weekend. I fully expected Cincinnati to beat the brakes off of Baltimore because, well, they were not going to have Lamar Jackson. They may have had Tyler Huntley, but it didn't matter. Whether it was going to be Tyler Huntley, whether it was going to be Lamar Jackson. And even with a good defense, it's like the offense was just a mess. Even with Mark Andrews, even with J.K. Dobbins, it's like they didn't have receiving help. They don't have the supporting cast necessary to keep up with Cincinnati. But man, was I wrong about this game? Was I totally wrong about this game, huh? So despite Cincinnati taking an early 9-0 advantage, it could have been 10, but Evan McPherson missed a field goal. The Ravens and Tyler Huntley would go on a very long drive in the second quarter, and they cut the lead to just 10-7. J.K. Dobbins barely scored a touchdown by reaching for the goal line. And then safety Kyle Hamilton on the other end would immediately give Baltimore the ball back before the half via a fumble by tight end Hayden Hurst. And Justin Tucker kicked a field goal and gave him the halftime lead 10-9. So, yeah, it was a defensive battle for most of this game. So the Bengals went on this drive of their own to start their first second half series. And, yeah, they capped it off with Joe Burrow putting in a QB sneak. And after Marcus Peters decided to commit a stupid pass interference penalty, they converted the 2-point conversion to T. Higgins, and they were up 17-10. But then the Ravens actually responded in kind. Tyler Huntley actually led a pretty decent drive, attacking the Bengals defense with 2 mid-range throws and then a long bomb touchdown to receiver Demarcus Robinson, and the game was tied at 17. So from there it was a defensive battle, and Huntley and the Ravens were threatening again to take the lead to begin the fourth quarter. But then, I don't know why the Ravens did this. They decided to have Tyler Huntley jump over everybody, stretch for the goal line to get a touchdown when they got there. And it obviously backfired. It really backfired on them. Linebacker Logan Wilson punched the ball out of his hands, and defensive end Sam Hubbard grabbed it, took it to the other side of the field, and gave the Bengals a lead they would never let go of. Like, I don't know why offensive coordinator Greg Roman, some 49ers fans are familiar with, I don't know why he would call that kind of play when the Bengals were all in, ready to defend that. And when you leave the ball just wide open like that to get the ball punched out like that, it makes it even more ridiculous. So it also is ridiculous that he didn't even get to the point of the goal line, and he was like arguing, like, "Hey, I crossed the goal line." No, you didn't. The evidence is clear and obvious that you didn't. So I don't know why you were arguing that. So anyway, once they get to the 2-minute warning, Huntley and the Ravens actually had one last chance to threaten a overtime period, but it was clear and obvious that his limitations, penalties, were not going to get him there. And then I don't know why John Harbaugh was like killing the clock. They weren't calling a timeout. They were playing hurry up. They were just like, "Oh, let's huddle. Let's have a huddle." And after the huddle, they didn't even get the playoff. They didn't even complete a catch or anything. It's like, what the hell are you doing? And then Huntley throws a last gasp Hail Mary under pressure, deflected by the Bengals defense. And funny enough, the Ravens barely almost got away. They almost got away with the touchdown. A receiver behind all those people in the end zone by the name of James Prochet. He nearly caught it. If he had been there, been a little bit more situational awareness, had he been near the ball long enough in time, he could have caught that thing, and lo and behold, touchdown. So the Bengals barely escaped with the win, 24-17. They earned themselves a trip to Orchard Park to face the Bills in the Week 17 matchup that never was. So obviously we know what happened there. So yeah, the Bengals set themselves up for a trip to Buffalo after holding off the Ravens in this wild, crazy ending to a wild card game. Yeah, fitting of an AFC North rivalry, huh? So, yeah, Baltimore blew it though. They really blew it despite having a backup quarterback and a pretty middling offense that's too Mark Andrews centric. So, yeah, there are definitely some things to address for Baltimore in the offseason. Like, yeah, are they going to give Lamar Jackson that big fat contract considering the injury that he had, his commitment to Baltimore. Are they going to look for another receiver for Rashad Bateman? They have to do something in the offseason. They really do. Are they going to actually find a good offensive coordinator too that can play to Lamar's strengths, that can take advantage of Lamar's actual throwing ability rather than just make him run the damn ball all the time? Because it eventually took its toll. Just look at the injury that he had. That took him out for at least a month. Baltimore shot itself in the foot on Sunday and now faces a major offseason. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, they won this game, but there are some things concerning coming out of it. And that was the injuries at the offensive line for me. I mean, sure, Joe Burrow has played with a crappy offensive line in the 2021 playoffs. Not that it was fun to do that, but the whole reason why Cincinnati made those moves in the offseason was to protect Joe Burrow because he was getting hit way too much. And now they head to Buffalo with serious concerns at the offensive line. Left tackle Jonah Williams left the game with a dislocated kneecap, and right guard Alex Kappa is not sure if they're gonna play with. Is he still nursing the ankle injury? So they're already down 3 linemen because Lyle Collins, the tackle, is out for the year with the ACL tear. So half of their starting linemen is out, and they're not sure if Kappa's going to be there to play against the Bills. Even without Von Miller, their pass rush is still pretty good. So they can't afford to lose any more people up front because it's just going to basically be like 2021 all over again. Burrow's going to get hit. He's going to get pressured. He's going to have nowhere to go against the Bills' defensive line. So they have to hope at least Alex Kappa can be ready to go next week in Buffalo. Because if he can't, then Burrow's going to be running for his life again, just like last year. So, yeah, Cincinnati beats the Ravens 24-17, gets a trip to Buffalo to take on the Bills. And, yeah, that should be, regardless of the offensive line issues for Cincinnati, this should be an exciting matchup for everyone. Whether you're a fan of Buffalo, whether you're a fan of Cincinnati, this should be a fun matchup. Then, to close out Super Wildcard Weekend, we had the Dallas Cowboys at number 5 travel to Tampa Bay, the number 4 seed, to take on the Buccaneers, or as I like to call them, the Bucs. So this is a rematch of their Week 1 meeting that the Bucs won 19-3 in Dallas. This time around, Tampa, as the NFC South, yet losing NFC South champions, hosted this game in their turf. So, yeah, this was a game that both teams were coming in not so good. Dallas, in their Week 18 matchup against Washington, was really bad. And then, obviously, for Tampa Bay, they didn't look so good all season long. And it was the two games against Carolina and Atlanta, at least for a half, that Tom Brady and the Bucs offense looked pretty solid for a good chunk of their games. So, yeah, this is a win-or-go-home game where one of these teams got the right to face San Francisco in the next round. And for Dallas, they want to get their first road playoff win since, literally in the 1990s. For Tampa, they want to hopefully get something for Tom Brady in what could potentially be his last rodeo. And unfortunately, for the Bucs, it didn't seem to be. Both offenses struggled on their first 2 series, but it was the Cowboys and their offense. They were able to settle in. They take the first lead of the night with Dak Prescott connecting with Dalton Schultz, wide open in broken coverage, in what also seemed like a broken Bucs defense, for much of the night. And the Bucs offense in response, they seemed well on their way to taking the lead after Brett Maher missed a field goal, an extra point, mind you. They seemed well on their way to taking the lead as they got to Dallas's red zone. But Tampa's weakened offensive line, even with center Ryan Jensen back, they broke down. Tom Brady threw a hurried end zone interception into the arms of safety Jaron Curse, and the offense for Dallas went on another slow and methodical drive, dissecting the Bucs defense in both ways, on rushing and in the air. And Dak Prescott blitzed and twisted the Bucs defense for a rushing goal line touchdown. And lo and behold, the Cowboys were up big on Tampa. The only problem was Brett Maher was missing his extra points, and those extra points were keeping Tampa in the game slightly because the Bucs weren't able to get anything going against a relentless Dallas defense. They were just bullying the Tampa front offensively. So eventually, Dallas takes a 18-0 halftime lead. Again, 3 straight mixed extra points. We're kind of keeping the Bucs in it, but by near the end of the third quarter, despite a last gasp, I guess you could say last gasp, touchdown from Brady to Julio Jones, it was just too little too late for Brady and the Bucs. Dallas' defensive front was just simply too much for Tom Brady, as they kept rattling and pressuring him into like hurried throws, mistakes, balls on the ground, and Dallas just further built up its lead as they avenged their Week 1 loss to the Bucs 31-14, and they move on to face my 49ers in the NFC Divisional Playoffs. So, yeah, the Cowboys, they played, credit to them, they played a pretty solid game. The only thing is, they played a clearly hapless Bucs team on all sides of the ball. Prescott, he played one of his best games of his career. Again, that's due to playing a pretty bad Bucs defense. But he did spread the wealth to CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, and others while escaping whatever pressure that the Bucs defense was able to get against a game Cowboys offensive line despite losing Jason Peters. On the other side, the pass rush of Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, and Jonathan Hankins, they were always going in. They were always finding ways to close in on Tom Brady, limiting him from making big throws all game long, and made him make mistakes all day. Now, the only thing is, can this same Cowboys team, who are going to have a major disadvantage in terms of rest, in terms of a short turnaround, can they find a way to follow up against my 49ers, who have had the benefit of 2 days of extra rest, and have the beneficiary of multiple playmakers on both sides of the ball? That'll be seen. It's going to make for an intriguing matchup, but yeah, the 49ers may have all the advantages, but yeah, it's all about who wins it in the end. Meanwhile, for the Bucs, it's going to be an interesting offseason, like a really interesting offseason for them. Not just for the Bucs, also for Tom Brady, but the Bucs first. This season was just absolutely disappointing for them. This was supposed to be giving Brady one last deep run at a Super Bowl, but instead it just completely faltered. The offense looked completely lost and lifeless for half of the season. The defense just simply not the same, and they also suffered a lot of in and out injuries that kind of threw the whole team off in terms of chemistry. And honestly, in my opinion, Tom Brady should have stayed retired. Like, I don't know why he had to come back. What was there to prove? So now Tampa Bay is facing an offseason full of uncertainty that just goes beyond Tom Brady. There are several players like Levante David, Sean Murphy Bunting, Jamal Dean. They're going to be free agents. And Tampa Bay doesn't have the cap space because of Tom Brady's big back contract. and contracts like Leonard Fournette's, that they don't have the money to spend on keeping all these guys. So they're going to have to find a way to get back in the green before they can start spending in free agency. Speaking of Tom Brady, like I said, what was there to prove coming back? Like, why even need to like retire, then unretire last year? Like, there was no need to. Like, there was nothing left to prove. He's won 7 Super Bowls. He's like the guy with the most Super Bowl championships. He has multiple records. Like, what was there left to prove for Brady? Like, that he's the guy that can't have his records broken ever. Like, there was nothing left for Tom Brady to prove coming in for this season, and it only just made him look like a martyr's not really the right term, but it just made him look weak. So now he goes into an off season where he's gonna have to think long and hard if it's seriously worth playing another season in the NFL. Because in all honesty, if he does come back, it's honestly only going to be worth playing one season. Like, you're really only going to be worth one season to, let's say, the Raiders, and then you're just going to say, see ya, and then don't want to be ya. And then what are the Raiders going to do after that? They're going to have to find a quarterback again. So how is it going to be worth for a team to go and get Tom Brady when he's at this age, and especially after the seasons he had? So for Brady, you should honestly just retire, go into the Fox broadcast booth. And yes, I get the desire that he wants to play, but considering that the season that he has had this year, he absolutely has nothing left to prove. He has to retire. It's time for him to face the reality, man. It really is. So, yeah, that's pretty much how it went down in this final wildcard game between the Cowboys and the Bucs. 31-14. The Cowboys boat raced Tampa out of their building. And yeah, that was Super Wildcard weekend for you. And yeah, what'd you all think about it? Did your team win if you were a fan of these teams, or did you just enjoy it in general, or were you bored out of your mind of it? Let me know your thoughts about it, man. Whether it's on social media or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments, let me know what you thought about these matchups any way you can. And then, man, this divisional weekend, it's set up to be a very interesting one, a very big one. I think it could definitely be better than the upcoming, like right after that, the conference championship weekend. I mean, just giving you a very early look at it before we talk about it in the next episode. I mean, probably not Jaguars and Chiefs, Giants and Eagles, Bengals and Bills, and then Cowboys and my 49ers. That's a big slate right there. The NFL is going to go bonanzas with that. They're going to love those matchups. So that's going to be a big weekend of football right there. And with conference championship trips on the line, it's going to be big. It definitely is going to be a very big matchup. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. So anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your filthy casual host, DylanLasagna, bringing you another round of filthy casual takes on this episode. Anyway, make sure to keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your take on the world of sports. And yeah, until next time, until another episode of this icy yet spicy podcast, peace out.